I'm so excited. I finally get to do a Shark Week review. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to do one of these. What? This this isn't a Shark Week review? Oh, sorry about that. Let me start over. Hello, my name is William Bartholomew, and today I will be presenting my project for Theater History 1. The topic of which is an analysis of the various types of theaters throughout history, theaters in this context being the actual physical structures that held plays. And in order to do so, I've done some recreations, more like representations, of these theaters, and in doing so, hope to show you what they looked like, who was there during the performances, and what kind of plays took place within them. That being said, get my time-traveling goggles on here, because we are going on a time tour, and the first stop on our lake location is ancient Greece. Just move the camera over here a bit, and here we go. This is a representation of what a classical Greek theater might look like. Now, really early Greek theaters were simply hillsides where people went to go see performances at the foot of the hills. However, as time went on, stone structures were built into the actual slopes of the hills, and they took advantage of them in order to create this. Here we have the theatron, right here, in this semicircular pattern, which served as the seats for the audience. Right here at the bottom, in this green space, we have the orchestra, which was where the chorus performed. They would sing, dance, and interact with the performers on the stage, which was located somewhere between the orchestra and the scene, right here. The scene worked as the elaborate background for the performances. They were typically modeled after something along the lines of a temple or a palace, something like that. And to the left and right, at the ends of the theatron, you have the paradoi, which served as the walkways in and out of the theater for both the audience and the actors. Greek theater can be seen as broadly divided into tragedy, comedy, and satyr plays, all of which could be witnessed during the festival of Dionysus near the end of winter. There were even competitions held to see who could make the best plays. Very prominent at the time, and it was more about glory than riches. In fact, really, there were no riches involved. It was just glory, getting your name inscribed forever. So, we move on past this to the next point in history. Roman Empire. I zoom back over here to this structure because many of what is considered classical Roman theaters are modeled after a Greek design. That is not to say all of them were, because Rome was a huge empire. There were a lot of cultural influence in it besides the Greeks, but once again, what's considered the classical was from Greece. And there were a lot of similars. Mostly the semicircular design of the entire arena. Anyway, but in a article by Neuhauser titled Roman Provincial Theaters, a Review, he made me aware of several differences between them, one of which being that Roman theaters could exist anywhere on their own foundation, not just hills, another being that Roman theaters were more elevated and enclosed than Greek theaters, mostly in an attempt to block out the sound of the city. And finally, there were passageways incorporated within the structure of the theater, kind of like a modern football stadium, which helped organize larger crowds into their seating, because crowds did get bigger, as the theaters did. Roman theater, not unlike the Greeks, had broad categories of tragedy and comedy. But they also incorporated things such as Italian farces and pantomimes, which are seen as some of the precursors to ballet because they were essentially storytelling through dance. So, as we move forward in time, we come across our next point in the presentation, which is Middle Ages. And for that, we have over here recreation of a pageant wagon. Now, an article found by McKinnell, he said that the actual proportions of the pageant wagon are a bit tricky to deal with, as is the overall design, because there are not really any surviving records as to what a pageant wagon really looked like, especially during the time when they were most popular. So, speculative-wise, I came up with the best I could, and this is the result. Right here, we have what was considered the pageant cart, which served as the background for it because it held the scenery, it held the dressing rooms, it even held some of the machinery for the effects during these performances. And then you'd also have the scaffold cart right here, which was where the actual performances took place on a pageant wagon. Pageant wagons were used during processional staging during the Middle Ages, especially during religious festivals such as Corpus Christi, in order to have them be at specific points in the city during specific times of the day to act out usually kind of conflicts between heaven or hell, things such as morality plays or farces, which was heavily ordained by the church because, well, it helped the church hold power during this time. Later on, as English drama would evolve, you would get things like Shakespeare, especially considering this his Globe Theatre, which unfortunately burned down. But in an article by Pye, I managed to find an impressive recreation of it, which they say is still a bit of a controversial because the proportions are never going to be exact. But it is still one of the more impressive recreations so far. So, as we move forward in time to our next destination, we come across the Théâtre Français. And for that, I bring you over to here, where we have the recreation of the French theater. Now, a little rudimentary, I know, but credit is due. Now, French theaters at this time were much closer to what is expected of modern theaters, especially in design. They incorporated newer concepts such as curtains, modern lighting, especially for French theater. In an article by Hawcroft, it was especially important to have kind of candle-like torches near the edge of the stage in order to provide sufficient lighting. In addition, you at the bottom here, near the beginning of the stage, you would have the orchestra pit, which was where people would... where the orchestra would sit and do their performances. And also it incorporated the use of boxes into the theater scene. Boxes being just very good seating along the walls of the theater leading in, which were typically held by the more wealthier candidates. Now, French theater around this time, most people who went to these performances could enjoy the works of Jean Racaille, who was more of a tragedian, or you could have the light-hearted wit of Molière, who adored audiences with his plays such as Tartuffe or The School for Husbands. Now, another factor to take into play here is that this is the last stop on our tour, and so it is here that we leave my presentation. I incorporated 4 points in history. I gave you an idea of what the theaters would look like, what would be performed, and who would be where on the stage. This is all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was informative beyond what has already been taught. Thank you for your time, and good night.